Talking about horses, bringing you closer to some of the best horsemen in the world for tips, insights, and stories. Listen at home, at work, in the car, or in the saddle. This is Talking About Horses. Here's your host, Patrick King.
Hey there, gang. Patrick King here, and I want to thank you for tuning in for episode number 45 of Talking About Horses. Today, I'm pleased to be joined by Karen Rohlf. Learning from Karen is like having your own personal cheerleader. Her sense of responsibility to the horse, as well as her open, non-judgmental, and fair-minded nature, allows you to go beyond the rigid rules of specific disciplines and get to the heart of your mental, emotional, and physical partnership with your horse. Through her never-ending quest for personal improvement and her practice of authentic communication, she's become a powerful voice that helps guide riders to better partnership and results in harmony. Even after all the decades of being a professional trainer, instructor, and competitor at the Grand Prix level, she still wakes up every day feeling like a little girl in love with horses. Karen, thank you so much for joining me once again for another episode here of Talking About Horses.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I really enjoyed the last time we spoke, so I was happy to do this again.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And I enjoyed it very much as well. So last time we spoke was the day after or just briefly after a hurricane that had happened. And now we're talking during this COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm thinking you and I need to get together for a call when everything is calm and quiet.
Yes, let's do that for sure.
Oh gosh, goodness.
Crazy.
So, and speaking of that, the COVID stuff, how are you faring with all of this? How has this changed what's going on for you?
Oh, well, thank you for asking. Really, I feel incredibly grateful and fortunate because life is pretty much the same. I mean, I'm already kind of half a hermit, and I'm so fortunate to have my own property and my horses are at home so I can see them. I feel for any people out there listening who are not able to go see their horses right now.
Yeah.
Breaks my heart just to think about it. So I'm very fortunate with that. And I'm also really grateful for the online business that I have. I did have to cancel a couple clinics, but I have so many things online that actually I'm busier than ever because we're just trying to get more stuff online and there's always stuff that needs to be done.
Right.
So again, I feel really, really grateful for the way I've formatted my business. It was sad to have to cancel a couple clinics. I know it's for the better good for everybody. And I love being able to do this and connect with my students online and people like you.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it is definitely a blessing the way that technology allows us to reach people, even, in this case of isolation and the whole, social distancing idea, we can have now, thankfully, the social connection.
Exactly.
So that's great that not a whole lot has changed that way. Like you said, kind of a wonderful thing to have that already lined up, that you can just roll with it. So
and I'm trying to train myself to not call it social distancing. It's really physical distancing.
This is true.
So and it's like it's physical distancing, but socially, I've been Zooming with people that I've talked to people that I wouldn't have been talking to, on a normal basis. So I think there's an opportunity for some really interesting connections that maybe people wouldn't have made otherwise, and a chance to study. There's so much stuff online to study, and like this series that you're offering, and so there's some opportunities to do the things that we thought we didn't have time for. Well, now we got time. So
yeah, there you go. Exactly. So true. I like that, the physical distancing versus the social distancing, and you're right. When you think of it that way, it's definitely a social connection that we've been able to make. The joke used to be disconnect to connect, when you're around people, but you're on your darn phone anyway, or you're doing whatever. And now with this being the way to connect, it is interesting the people that you talk with now, maybe that you haven't, or that you lost touch with, that sort of thing, that the idea of slowing down and not traveling so much, not being out of the home so much, is allowing you to reconnect that way. So that is a pretty cool way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So for people out there who may not know who Karen Rohlf is, can you tell us what's your story? Give us the kind of maybe abbreviated version. I don't know. You can give
Yeah.
us the full version if you
I
want.
was born in
I've got
Kansas.
lots of time.
No, actually was born in Kansas.
Were you? Okay.
Yeah, we're not in Kansas anymore. And Wizard of Oz is, I think, my favorite all-time movie. So
Oh,
there you
nice.
have it.
Nice.
But anyway, yeah, so I've been, the short version is my professional training expertise was in dressage. So horse crazy kid, pony club, ended up in dressage, and then became a professional. So that's what I did for decades and decades. And then because of a horse that was retiring, a Grand Prix horse that was retiring, and there wasn't really anything fun for horses to do at this dressage facility, I started looking a little outside the box for something fun for him to do. And that's when I came across natural horsemanship and ended up studying with Pat and Linda. I kind of got introduced to them, went and did a clinic, and then I wouldn't leave. So I followed them around for a few years and really immersed. And what really resonated with me about that was, well, number one, it reminded me of the kind of connection I had with my horse when I was a kid. I had this, really special horse that went from a pony club horse to competing FEI, and I was on the team for the Young Riders Championships 4 years in a row. So here was this off the track thoroughbred with a bowed tendon, and now he's competing at, internationally. And I thought, wow, what a special horse that was. It was a once in a lifetime horse. And then, became a professional. And it wasn't until I had this other horse who was now at Grand Prix and now retiring, and became mine. He was willed to me. And now I had this horse. I'm like, I got to do something fun with him now that he's retiring.
Okay.
And I started to do the silly stuff, partnership stuff.
Okay.
The stuff that the other people at the dressage barn were like,
oh yeah, the poo-poo that.
the look, right? What the hell is she doing? She's just standing there, right? And when I started doing that, this horse that I didn't really think had any big problems, I was just looking for silly stuff to do, he started to transform. And I started to feel this thing that I hadn't felt since my horse Brave Tom that I had when I was a kid. And when we started interacting on this different level, I was like, oh my gosh, I started riding him again. I mean, he started going better and better. He was happier than he'd ever been. So a lot of people get into natural horsemanship from a problem horse. Okay. And I got into it, right? They're like, I had this problem. I had to go find a cowboy.
I ran out of options or ran out of answers. And yeah.
So what really got my attention was I didn't think I had any problems. I was just looking for silly things to do, like how do you get a horse to stand on a pedestal and follow you around? So when that horse transformed, I went, wait a minute, what is going on here? And it just spoke to my heart because it rekindled this connection I had when I was a kid with my horses. And I realized that it was that connection that made that horse Brave Tom so special. That's what made him give extra and do things for me that he had no business doing. But so yes, skill is involved, but that's what really got my attention. And then I went, well, I can't know just a little about this. I need to know a lot. And that's when I started following Pat and Linda around. And from there have just really focused on continuing the dressage education, but then gathering as much as I can learn about partnership-based training and observing the horse naturally and ethology and different training, the 4 quadrants of animal behavior training. And and through that, at some point I went, all right, well, I'm a professional teacher. How am I going to describe what the heck I'm doing now? And so I had to create the Dressage Naturally system to make what I did make sense for me, right? Because as a trainer, you have, logical progressions and you have, okay, when this happens, this is what you do. And from my dressage training, now introducing natural horsemanship, my world was kind of mixed up. I'm like, do I put more leg on or do I go bridleless? I don't know, So I had to make a way of thinking about it and reconciling this. And that's what the Dressage Naturally program was a result of me just going, how the heck do I fit this together? Because I know it fits together. And so and the rest is history. So I wrote a book, and then from there created the video classroom to support the book, and then online courses. And I just kept going.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
So that's the, as much in a nutshell as I can.
There we go. No, I think that's
Yeah.
great. I think that's great. And it's kind of like your bio says, going back to Brave Tom, and this retired horse kind of helped you be that little girl that fell in love with horses again.
Yeah. And I think when we think about what it means to be a professional, like, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
And looking around and sort of seeing, what do horses really need in their lives as horses?
Mm-hmm.
And then what's the model for taking care of horses? And realizing, like, hey, the most professional barns sometimes offer the least of what horses actually need. So it's like, so when you become professional, obviously it means some level of skill, hopefully that's implied. But then, I've had people say it's not professional to have your horse go barefoot.
Oh.
It's not professional to have your horse live outside. And, it's like, huh.
Yeah.
So I realize that there's professional circumstances when you're in a training barn, you're coming in for a short amount of training. Yeah, you're probably not going to kick your $100,000 horse out in the herd.
Right.
There's certain realities of management that's smart, but when you become professional, I've heard of students who finally buy property. They can finally keep their horse at home. They want the best for their horse, so they buy 50 acres, build a barn, and go bring a horse home and put their horse in the stall in the barn.
Oh, wow.
When it's the only horse on the property. Because that's what you do. You keep your horse in a stall, and they haven't, because that's what the professionals do. So that's just an example, but there's a list of other things. Like when you're a professional, you don't schmooze and snuggle your horse, or you don't, I don't know, you keep a level of emotional detachment, right? Because
okay, sure.
it's, and and I found myself doing that because I was working with client horses. So what I realized is I don't want emotional detachment. I want my horse, I want it to feel like it did when I was a kid and I had horses at home, and I went down, I hung out with them, and they were all perfect and fabulous. And that's what I want to feel every day. And if I can make a career out of that, bonus point. But I don't, when I started noticing that sometimes the students are keeping their horses better than the professionals. And so it, I'm probably triggering people with the word professional or whatever, but it's just, we professionals, I think, should be the best models of how to be around horses. And I think sometimes professionals really specialize, and students have to know this. Like, there are specialists who are really good at, like, perfecting the Grand Prix test at the Olympic level. Okay.
Right.
Go to them. But that same person might not be the perfect model for how to keep a horse happy for 20 years on your property.
Right. That makes perfect sense. Absolutely. Yeah. Everybody has kind of their niche in that way.
Right.
So yeah, you're right. Very true.
I felt like I went on a little rant there. Was that okay?
No, I love it though. I love it. And that's reminding me, there was something that I saw just the other day, and I wish I would have come across it again before our chat, but it was shared by you, and it was I think it was originally shared by you and then shared by somebody else, and that's how I saw it.
Yay.
Right?
Stuff is shared.
I don't do, as much as I do these things on social media, I don't do much on social media. I don't do a lot of scrolling through the feeds and that sort of thing. So
yeah, good for you.
It always has to be something that just kind of pops up. But they were talking about your philosophies or your ideas on professional responsibilities, I think is what it was, and talking about how those are different than maybe what that might seem. And so perfect to hear you talking about this now. Yeah, I think that's a fantastic topic to touch on. What
Yeah,
is it
and
that
there's
you
I
think
think
causes
there's
that?
a sorry,
No, no, no. Go
I
ahead. Go
broke the
ahead.
Zoom rules. There's a blog. If you go to my blog, there's one, I think the one that's been shared recently is like a fresh look at the industry standard for
Yes.
industry model for horse care or something. So you can
Hmm.
find it on my blog. Um,
Okay.
yeah, and it just makes people go, oh yeah,
Mhm.
hadn't thought of it that way. So
Yeah, yeah. So what is it that you think causes us to go from the little girls in love with horses, and then when we get that professional card, it causes, now we're strict, we're rigid, it's all militant, and what is that? Is that the sticking with a schedule? Is that the outcome as the focus? What do you think is the cause of that?
yeah, I mean, I can just speak for myself personally. I'm trying to like retrace the steps, and it is a combination of things. It's a combination of yeah, when you have 8 to 12 horses in training and you've got lessons and you got like it's 45 minutes from the working suit and to bring the horse in the saddle, got to be on the next one 45 minutes later. There's and you can train like that. I mean, the
Sure.
training wise, you can do sessions like that.
Mhm.
But I don't know what the horse is like being tacked up, and I don't know what he's like going back to the barn. So
Yeah.
there's pieces that I'm missing. So it caused me to narrow my focus. Like I was a dressage
Okay.
specialist for many decades. Like that was my world. And I'm like, okay, it's gymnastic training. Here we go. And there's always some psychology. You have to work with the whole horse in that moment,
Hmm.
but there's parts that I'm missing. So there's that. And then there's, I think we've all as trainers had the student's horse that we fell in love with. Have you ever had a student's horse that you fell in love with? And
Oh
it's
yeah.
not your horse. And they
Right.
can decide to take them away anytime they want because it's their horse. They might not be
Exactly.
unhappy. They move or, you know,
Right.
and it's hard as a horse lover and as a trainer who wants to put their heart and soul into it. I think it's hard to do that and knowing, well, it's not my horse. So I think it I'm very emotional that way. So I learned to distance myself and I would like, this is not my horse.
Mhm.
And
There's the wall,
sometimes,
and you don't cross it.
right.
Mhm.
And actually the reality is, Patrick, you've probably seen this too, is sometimes you train other people's horses better because
Right?
because you're like,
Because a little
my
bit of that distance, right?
my horses get away with all kinds of stuff because they're cute, but other one I'm like, I
Exactly.
would never let I'll train your horse better. So there's there's something to be said for that. But the bottom line is there's this little distance. So I don't want to say harden, but for me it felt like I had to like, well,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna schmooze and whatever. Come on, when you've seen so many horses, you're like, okay, they're having trouble, they're gonna get over it. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of just, come on, we gotta get this done.
Mhm.
There's often goals, right? So as a professional, often the goal used to be for me is performance, right? So we gotta get ready for this test, we gotta go up the level. So there's a little bit
Yeah.
of the goal is to achieve this kind of measured success,
Mhm.
and that's the higher goal, and we do the best. I was always known as the nice trainer, the trainer who liked the underdog. So I could operate in that system and have those goals, but that can tend to, when depending on your priorities, then things
Mhm.
can
Yes.
flip. So I think it's just a series of things. When you picture a professional, I think I didn't always picture, the schmoozing, oh my god, you're so cute horse kind of behavior. Or when I started making the transition, I'd be like, oh, let me hop on my horse with the halter and bareback. you know
Yeah. You must not be riding
that
seriously.
didn't look very professional.
Right.
So stuff like that. And it's like, and then you have to ask, and students need to ask this, like, according to who says.
Mm. Yeah,
Who
exactly.
said?
Yeah.
And literally, I've had my neighbor is a dressage trainer, and I helped her with one of her young horses who was having trouble with his feet. And so I went over. I said, "Listen, the fairy's doing a terrible. Let's pull the shoes." I said, I'll trim them up for you. I'm not a professional trimmer, but like I know a few things. I do my own
Mhm.
horse's feet, and the horse was going sound. So
Wow.
keep doing that. And then he was for sale, and literally a trainer brought a client over and pulled my friend aside and was like, ripped her apart. Like, how dare you present a horse that's barefoot? That's so
No
unprofessional.
kidding.
Yeah. So, in that person's world, that was barefoot. Meanwhile, the vet was saying, oh my gosh, he's so sound and he's barefoot. Like, that was a plus. But this
Yeah,
person's
sure.
like, no, they would have put shoes on. Why are you putting the shoes on? Because it's unprofessional to not do that. I mean, some horses need shoes, but like,
Yeah,
not for that reason.
right,
So,
right.
there's just lots of little things that happen. And gosh, it's got to be so confusing to students out there
Mhm, mhm.
because every professional's got their different set of rules. But
Right, right. Yeah, I think that is a big thing to think about. Professional by whose standards? Who's setting
yeah,
those?
who says? And so, that's where I try to really, it's funny, I try to be a model of a person. Like right now, actually, the way I run things, like I'm not making money by my riding, right? I'm not competing and I'm not training other people's horses.
Okay.
So I'm like, wow, I get to be like a horse owner and I'm so happy. I mean, yes, I teach clinics and yes, I, make training videos and stuff like that, but it feels different. I feel like my role is to have fun with my horses the way I want to have fun with my horses. And
Yeah.
I progress my training. I've got one working on Grand Prix right now. So I'm like, I'm not
Awesome.
slacking,
Uh-huh.
but I do it not to compete. I do it because I love doing it.
Right. And now you can.
And yeah, and I want my horses to be happy and I want to operate, I want it to feel fun for me. So now maybe I'm part of a new model of a professional because like I'm doing stuff the way I'm keeping my horses the way I want horses to be kept and to have the fun I want to have. And we're ridiculous around here, Patrick. We have so much fun. And if I'm a professional and that's how I do it, then that must be professional. It
There you
must be
go. That's
professional
a
to run
perfect way to
around
look at
that,
it.
run
Yeah.
around after my horses and have them, doing ridiculous things. So again, it's like according to who. So I'm hoping to kind of give a new model for what it means to be a professional. And number one, it should be someone who's absolutely in love with their horses and loves what they do so much that they get up every morning and run out there and train, not because I have a show and not
Mhm.
because someone paid me, but because I can't wait to get out there and ride my horses and call them
Right.
in.
Right. Because your heart's in it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. I love that. Well, I think that's a perfect segue. I wanted to chat a little bit about something recent also that I saw from you about the happy athlete formula. We're talking about keeping our horses this way, and we're talking about loving our horses and interacting with them in this way that you're excited to be there and in this more positive professional way from the horse's perspective.
Mhm.
What are we talking about when we're talking about a happy athlete?
Yeah, that's actually such an interesting question, right? Because we have trouble figuring out how to make ourselves happy
Right?
as humans. But for me, I think I have this thing I call the happy athlete training scale, and that's how it makes
Okay.
sense in my brain. So um, the base of the scale, if you picture the little pyramid, the base of the scale is happy, right? So
Okay.
the first priority is be happy and have a horse that's happy. Now, if you're
So this is
happy and
you and your horse.
right, so if you're happy and your horse is happy, the next piece up is called harmony, right? So if you're happy, your horse is happy, you're going to have a much better chance of being in harmony with them, right?
Okay. Hmm.
Now, if you're in harmony with them, you're going to have a much easier time communicating with them. So communication is the next layer up.
Okay.
And if you can communicate with them, now you can talk to them about some techniques like move from my leg, yield this,
Okay. Hmm.
soften this, shoulder in, and some of those techniques will involve dressage. So at
Oh,
the very tip of the pyramid, it's dressage, and at the base is happy.
awesome.
And, so you spend most of the time being happy and a
Hmm.
smaller percentage of the day doing dressage. And the
Okay.
dressage lives inside of the happy, right? It's
Yeah. Yeah.
so and that probably seems like, yeah, that sounds really obvious, Karen. But what I realized was way back when I used to spend a lot of time doing dressage. I was a dressage trainer. Boom, that's what I start with. We're doing dressage. And in dressage, we would do techniques that would communicate about certain things. And then hopefully when they're really balanced and moving in a harmonious way, and then when they're Grand Prix after the perfect half halt, then we'll be happy.
Yeah,
So
right. That's a little star on top of the pyramid.
right.
Yeah.
You did it. Right. So I would spend a lot of time doing dressage, and sometimes I'd be happy with it. Right. Because it's,
Gotcha.
you know, in dressage, you got to be perfect. So you got, it gets very particular. So,
Right.
Sometimes we're happy with it. And not that I was not a happy person, but just that idea. We can picture the cartoon. You can probably picture pretty easily of people and horses who spend a lot of time doing dressage and a small time looking happy doing it. Right? Can you conjure up that image pretty
Absolutely.
easily?
Yeah.
I think we've all seen that. So I want to flip that. So I think the priority number one is to figure out what you need to do personally so you show up to your horse happy.
Okay.
Because horses make us happy, but they shouldn't have to. So do the personal work to show up. And again, that seems obvious, but we've all seen the person who walks into the barn muttering stupid from
Yeah.
and oh gee, they didn't have a good ride today. I wonder why. So personal responsibility to take care of your own stuff. And then also, what are the basic needs of horses? Do they have enough so that they're happy, whatever that is, or are they frustrated weaving in their stall, or are they, some horses are scared being turned out, it's like, whatever it is, are they at least feeling like if you look at them from afar, when you're not there, are they basically happy or at least not unhappy?
Okay.
And resolve that first, right? So sometimes training dressage problems are not dressage problems. They're the horses, not eating right or they're frustrated or they're feeling isolated. And of course it's going to affect the training. So I always think number one, get your own mindset right and make sure you have at least a content horse. Horse is like, yeah, my life's pretty good. And then build from there. So it's also problem solving, because if I'm having trouble in my dressage up here, I'm not gonna, don't laser focus in there. Sometimes the problem of your half pass is he's spooking in that corner, and you've got to trace it all the way back to however far back you have to go.
Right.
So that's that kind of happy athlete scale. So how do you know if they're happy? A big part for me is, make sure you know the signs of unhappy, right? So there's a lot of stuff out there about unhappy, their stress, their heart rate, their expressions. So get them at least not obviously unhappy.
Right.
But for me, it's a willingness to participate and an opportunity to offer things that you're asking for. So, and the only way to really know if they're willing to participate and if they're offering is to give them a little bit of freedom and a little bit of choice.
Yeah.
Right? Because horses can tolerate, or be there's horses that go from stall to led with the chain over the nose to the cross ties to led to the arena to doing dressage. Now, there's not a lot of choice for that horse to express what he really wants to do. Some horses do anyway. Some horses do
this
anyway.
is true. And then they get labeled problems. Yeah.
Right. But so here's a really good example, Patrick. So I had a half hour left before I had to come inside. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to go out. My new horse Teo was out in the front paddock. And I said, I'm going to go, I can long line him. I'll just long line him right there in the paddock. So I go marching out and I take the cavesson and I start to hold it up and he goes like this.
He was having none of it yet.
Right. And so now he's kind of like that. But in the grooming stall, we kind of have that in that context. He's really good. But out in the paddock, he was like, what are you doing? So I could have really easily put my hand on his neck, dropped his head, put it on, and gone a long line. But I was like, I had one hand, I was like, So how happy was he about that? How harmonious was that? I communicated, I'm going to put this on, and he communicated back, I don't like that.
Yeah.
So I could have just gone, shut up. We're long lining.
Right? Just do it.
Right. And again, it would not have been a fight. It would have been, you would have watched that from afar and said, everything's fine. But I felt it and I thought, all right, according to my own priority list, happy and harmonious is high on it. So I go, okay, Karen, walk the talk. And so I just played with that for a little while. And my other horses were coming over, shoving their heads inside the cavesson. I'm like, no, Teo, you.
Pick me.
And I
pick
actually
me.
made a little video in my Facebook group. I just posted this. I'm trying to hold the phone while I'm like trying to hold. And so my rule was I have to be able to do it with one hand while videoing it. If I hold this thing up, I want him to put his head in it. And I just fiddled with it. It took a half hour, but by the end, he's taking it on and off and it's no problem. And then that was it. I didn't long line him because I only had a half hour. But what kind of partnership points did I make? How much happier was he at the end of that than if I had just gotten it on and long lined him?
Yeah.
And we could have had a nice session, but when I think about the relationship, I think all those little things add up. You know, think of our own relationships. If we're just like, you know, you say to your spouse or partner, you know, I'm not really comfortable, shut up and just do it.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's like,
right
okay,
over the-
you know, all right, you know, but even small things, how would it feel to go, oh, really? Well, what's going on? And then I could say, you know, just give me a couple minutes. I'm not really ready. Versus shut up, just do it.
Right.
You know, from little benign things, those things add up. And I think horses feel that. I mean, you know, for some horses that becomes a big deal. And for some horses, it's not a big deal. They can tolerate that their whole life. But, you know, that's sort of what you know, when you think about what makes them happy, I think it's the difference of I go out there with a cavesson and my other horses come go, can I put it on my head? You know, versus this one going, I'm not okay. I think those things add up. And so that idea through lots of levels of training, how much can you still reach your goal while offering enough freedom and choice that you know what they're really thinking?
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so when you're training them online on grass, are they diving for the grass and you have to keep them busy, or can you be in the middle of the session and stop and have them still be with you?
And have them happy to
You
not
know,
grade.
yeah. Or you go, well, I can't do that. I have to do it in the arena, or they're going to be diving for grass. I'm like, how much are they really with you? And you know, what can you figure out by them having the choice to graze and not paying attention, or going, how interesting do I have to be more interesting than grass?
Yeah.
So that they're not, and it's not like punish them for eating, but it's like, how can I be so that they're just like, because like right now, Patrick, if in the middle of this, if I went, you know, we still having a conversation.
Exactly.
If I paused and you're like, see ya, you know, you're like, wow, I wasn't really that intriguing, was I? You're like, okay, good. Finally, she stopped talking. I'm going to leave. So anyway, that I think those things all add up. So freedom and choice for me is how I kind of know, because my horses show up. And if they run away, if I finish a ride, I take off the tack and I walk back to the barn and they're like, see ya, then I know what they felt about the ride. But if they follow me back to the barn, I also know what they felt about the ride.
Yeah.
Or I have a little better indication. So freedom
Just
and
showing
choice.
up. I think that's an interesting way to say it. You know, are they showing up, you know, willingly? Is it something that they're like your other horses, like you're saying, you know, looking forward, saying, please, can you pick me? You know, that sort of thing.
Right. So the thing we have to balance is safety and not rehearsing behaviors we don't want. Balance that does happen when you give them freedom and choice. Sometimes they choose something you don't want, you know, and you can't just let them loose in an unsafe area. But I like to set up my, you know, balance that with achieving the ultimate goal. So I have my place set up so that they can be loose in the barn area. And so as I cycle through horses, it's actually quite hilarious. There's some of them, they're like, well, I'm going to be out in the pasture. And some of them keep like hijacking the grooming stall because they're like, they want to go next.
Right.
So when I come in from riding a horse and there's like 3 horses hanging out in the grooming stall, you know, I'm like, okay, I guess they kind of want to be played with today. So that to me, like, that just melts my heart.
Yeah.
that makes me feel good every day. And if they don't do that, then I look, all right, what am I doing to take
Mhm.
things out of the balance that they're starting to go,
Yeah.
I'm going over there. And so,
Right.
and then I have information, and now I can train differently,
Mhm.
um, to
Mhm.
try. And so they said to push, can I train to Grand Prix? Can I
Mhm.
push a horse, to challenge a horse,
Mhm.
progress a horse, and at the end of the day, have them feel like their life is pretty cool, and I'm pretty cool to be with.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. My fiance Lisa, she talks sometimes about it being like a bank account. You know, everything you're asking of them is taking a withdrawal from the bank account. And you know, like you're talking about, you know, your horse kind of saying, nah, I don't know about that captain. You know, to just say, well, sit down, shut up, and let's do it. That could be a pretty big withdrawal. You know, for
Yeah,
some horses, maybe it's a small withdrawal, but for him, maybe it's a big one. You know, and are we
right.
making enough deposits to support the withdrawals?
Yeah. Yeah, and to be conscious, because there's times when we, have to go, I'm sorry, but I gotta get this done today, you know,
Hmm.
and but I'm conscious about it. Like, okay, I love that. I took $10 out of the account today,
Yeah,
and then I
right.
know I have to make up for it somewhere else.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right, right.
I just the
Yeah.
awareness of it
That's a
is
big
is
part of it,
so
right? You
key.
know? Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge part of it because it would
Yep.
be easy to overlook that and say, "Oh, yeah, you know, this other thing's happened and I just got to go do this." And to lack that awareness, that is, you know, that huge withdrawal
Yeah.
there potentially. And if you get enough of those adding up, well, that bank account goes into overdraft.
Yeah, exactly. Because, in training, I say this is a thing because if we only did what our horses said that they wanted to do, we might not ever advance in our training. So, you know, I know I go to the limit of my horses and I go to the edge and I go hopefully only a little bit over, because training is asking them to do things they don't yet know how to do. So it's going to
Mhm.
be uncomfortable. There's going to
Mhm.
be frustration. There are going to be days where they're tired.
Mhm.
So I think to be conscious and going, here's one of these days, and how do I come out the other side and know all the positive things that are going to happen from my training, that they are stronger, they do feel more balanced, they do feel,
Mhm.
you've probably seen with horses you train, they get like proud of themselves, so
Mhm.
a
Absolutely.
lot of times when I talk about this, I have to be careful because I don't want people to think like, oh, my horse doesn't like it, never mind,
Right.
because
Exactly.
it's to me, this is the exciting part of like, oh no, we're gonna get those one-time fees. But like,
Mhm.
how do I play that of, my horse could come back going, whoo, that was hard and that was really weird. What the heck was she doing? Yet big picture over time, I know that they're happy, that they still trust me. So
Mhm.
that's where it gets interesting, is when we decide to progress and have the partnership. But we
Yeah.
don't have to choose. It's not, I'm going to get to Grand Prix or my horse is going to like me.
Mhm.
The
Right.
interesting stuff happens when we decide to do both.
I love it. I love it. So we're talking about the harmony. How would you describe the harmony part of this happy athlete scale?
Mm, yeah. Well, there's two ways to get harmony, Patrick.
Okay.
One is just do whatever your horse is doing.
Okay. Hmm.
The other side is get your horse to do what you want to do.
Ah, there we
Right.
go.
So, yeah, it's very simple, right?
Mhm.
So,
Just that easy.
so
Yeah, no problem.
yeah, but I mean, but it's a good thing. I like to make things simple because then at least that's a place to start. So, um, in any moment, so say you have a horse that's going slower than what you like him to go. And
Okay.
sometimes those low energy horses, you start every ride with having to push them around. It's like, oh God, that's just every time we start, it's like, come on, I got to make you go.
Hmm.
So sometimes, just an example, if I wanted to have more harmony with that horse that I tend to have to do a lot to motivate, I could get on the horse and just fall in love with whatever energy he offers me, and not go right around going, I wish he was going faster. I'm just like, oh my gosh, you are just, look how beautiful and slow you go. And just relax my mind and relax my body and offer no resistance to that. And then he gets to experience me being in harmony with him,
Okay.
instead of me always saying you need to be going faster
Hmm. Hmm. More
or
forward,
doing
more
more.
forward,
So
more forward.
that's the easiest way to get in harmony, is just do whatever your horse is doing. If they're going
Okay.
too fast, just ride as fast as they're going.
Hmm.
Right. So now you're in harmony. Then the other part is maybe at some point, now sometimes just achieving that harmony, now you're in a harmonious place where there's no brace. Then when you ask, sometimes it goes easier just because they're relaxed. They're not like, oh, she's gonna tap me on the
Right. They're
butt any
more
minute now.
receptive at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
So sometimes that is the doorway in, but sometimes it's not, and they'll just go slow their whole life, just to keep using that example. So let's say you've done your 10 minutes of being in harmony with their idea, and then I go, I have an idea. I think I'd like to go a little bit more than that. And then it's up to me to go, how can I clearly communicate that, motivate him to do it, and thank him for it, so that he goes my speed. So then I go, wow, thanks, that was perfect. Now we're in harmony again. And then that's then the training comes in. How do we get that to happen? And so what I think happens, most people, including myself, are not in the most harmonious moment because we do halfway. We think, I'm going to follow my horse, but we don't really.
Right.
We follow our horse, but we're in our brains going, I wish he was going more. Or we have that little bit of tension, or like, I'm not really pushing, but you watch the video and I'm like, oh crap, I really was pushing. I didn't even know it. So we're think we're following, but we're not really following. Or we ask our horse to do something and he doesn't really do it. Maybe 80%. Right. And so we're always doing this, right? We're not 100% following. We're not 100% leading. We're in this like
in that gray area. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I try to minimize those moments. And, we're never perfect, especially when you're training, because by nature of training, you're trying to do something you don't know how to do yet. Or even when you're learning as a student. Yeah, I'd like to follow that horse's sitting trot perfectly, but I don't know how to do it yet. So we just do our best, but I try to accumulate circumstances where I'm 100% in harmony, as best as I can imagine it, meaning I'm following as best I can, mentally, emotionally, physically, and then I'm leading as best I can, emotionally, mentally, physically. And there's usually some things we ask our horse to do that we know they never answer 100%. We go, well, that's pretty good for you. You can do that, and I'll just kind of keep my leg on a little bit just to kind of keep you going.
Yep. Fake it till you make it.
Right. So yes, there's times to do that, but again, be conscious, and those things add up. So if you're carrying 20% of everything you ask, and now you're asking for more and more complicated things, all of a sudden you've got all your aids on all the time and there's nothing left. So the harmony really is mentally, emotionally, and physically. And to ask yourself in any moment, could I follow more, or could I be a clearer, more motivating leader? Do I need to go with my horse, or does my horse need to go with me? And so those are and sometimes it's a combination. I mean, obviously when we lead our horse to do something, we have to then immediately follow whatever it was we asked them. But that's a really simple way of thinking it. And sometimes energy level and direction are really good ones to start with. So like, let's say you can follow the rail around the whole arena. Like, it's easy. Like, everybody knows if you're on the rail, if you're off the rail, you, the horse, and anybody looking.
Right.
So if your goal is follow the rail, then if your horse is on the rail, drop the reins. Neutral, 100% following. And if he's not on the rail, do something to get him back on the rail. So it's like black or white. Pick up your reins, get him back on the rail, drop them again. So what we often do is we have our reins there and we're kind of just holding them on the rail a little bit. So we're not giving them the freedom that they need. And we're not doing anything to show them that he should be staying on the rail mentally. Right?
Sure.
So maybe he's obliging, but as soon as we give him an option, he might have been physically on the rail, but he wasn't, and physically in harmony, but mentally, he's trying to get out the door. So that's taken away on the harmony bank account. So that's how I like to use like liberty and freestyle riding, is to see how many things I can get in harmony with his little aids. And so part of it is, in that example, if I can drop the reins and he stays on track, like that's pretty harmonious. Maybe
Mhm.
he wanders off because he doesn't know. That's fair enough. I don't mind saying, hey, you should get back to the rail. But when I go, hey, you should get back to the rail, he should go, oh, sorry, okay.
Right.
So sometimes we use our aids to get them back on the rail, and the aids don't work, and we're doing what international symbol for I wish my horse was over there. Right? International symbol for I wish my horse had turned right.
I love it. That's so perfect.
Right?
Yes.
So I ask students sometimes, like if I see their hands going across midline and they're going in a straight line, I go, what do your hands want? And they'll go, I want my horse to be over there. I say, your hands are correct. We need to move your horse over here.
Right. Right.
Right. So that's disharmony, right? Your hands are going, I
Okay.
wish they were
Yeah.
over there, but I'm not going to do anything really about it. Right. So that's like, now we're in harmony, and now I'm going to prove it.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's those sorts of things, like finding those little moments of, you have tension in your right leg. I go, what does your right leg want? And then the
Yeah.
student will say, well, my horse is falling in. I'm like, well, take your leg off, let him fall in, and now practice the aid of, I'm
Mhm.
going over here. So when your leg comes on, something happens, then you can take your leg off again.
Mhm. That's perfect. That's
Yeah.
perfect. And I love that question that you presented there. Can I follow more, or can I lead more clearly? I think that's a great way. And maybe I botched that, but
No, that's good.
I think okay. I think it's a great way of thinking about it. Yeah. Can I follow more, or like you're saying, can I release this? Can they find that spot? We talk about the horse being responsive and between the aids. If you're all wonky all over the place and you've got legs and hands doing 17 different things, well, your horse is probably not between those aids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
listen to the wisdom of the body. It tells you what it wants. And sometimes we're like, I don't know why I'm doing that.
Yeah.
But so
Right.
I will stop doing it and see what happens.
Yeah.
And then you'll find out the horse takes off or stops or turns.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and I love that advice there. Just stop doing it and see what happens, because that really in the end is the clear test of, is the training effective, right? Are you being effective? Is the horse really understanding that? If you stop that, is he going to? And that kind of brings us into that idea in a way of self-carriage, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I
So
saw a video that you did the other day on self-carriage in the cross ties. And I thought that was just a fantastic way of getting people to think differently about self-carriage. That was the emotional self-carriage there.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and sometimes physical. I mean, the horse is leaning on the,
Mhm.
I don't know why my horse is heavy in my reins all the time. Like, well, look what he's practicing. Sorry, I got really close to the camera there. Yeah, the self-carriage is a concept, and it's a mental, emotional, physical state. So again, that's one of those things that maybe someday when my horse is perfectly engaged in uphill and I get the protractors out and his whole angle is perfect and I half halt, then he'll have self-carriage. And I say, no, self-carriage starts, it's a concept. Can the horse be here and fully okay with where he is right here in any moment? Right.
Yeah.
So horses dancing at the end of the lead rope, that's not self-carriage. So, and then we have to go, well, why? Is he afraid? Is he just not respecting the boundaries or not understanding the boundaries? And so then then the puzzle is, I wonder why that's happening. And you have to try to figure that out. But to notice, yeah, that mental, emotional, and physical state of self-carriage.
Mhm. Mhm. That's perfect. I thought that video was fantastic, the way that you
That's the
presented.
same horse Teo with the lunging cavesson.
Ah,
So
okay.
he's new to me. And so
Fantastic.
there's all these little pieces that,
Mhm.
he's a good boy. He's very tolerant, um, until he's not. He
Ah,
came to me because he had an explosion problem in
okay.
certain circumstances, suddenly out of nowhere. Well, it's not out of nowhere.
Right.
When he gets
Right.
tense, he goes
For
introverted.
no reason, right?
And he's like, I'm not okay with this, but I'm just gonna do this. So that's why I'm with him. I'm taking so much time to see all the places he goes, I'm not okay. And I go, well, I want you to be okay. I don't want you to save that for when it
Right.
finally explodes,
Right.
30 minutes later. when I'm
Yeah,
on it.
yeah, exactly. Out of nowhere. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I joke to my students all the time that the 4 biggest lies in horsemanship are all of a sudden, out of nowhere, for no reason, and without warning.
Oh my God, I love that. Love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's always that spot, like you said, the being aware, and I love the way that you related that. Can the horses be fully present, just like we need to be fully present? It becomes kind of mindfulness for us and them. Are they really there? And it goes back to what you said. Are they showing up?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the older I get, the less I want to ride horses that don't want to be with me in that moment. You know, I mean, I used to be like, I'll ride anything. Now I'm like, no, I want to ride the horses that want me riding them. If I
Yes,
get a
that's not
sense
much
that they're
safer
not
for you.
okay, I'm like, well, let's get you okay. Because
Yeah. Well, it's just a lot easier that way, right?
it
Yeah.
sure is. It sure is.
Yeah, perfect, perfect. So when I was reading this article about I should admit, when I was skimming this article
That's okay.
about the happy athlete formula, you talked about ridermanship. Can you talk about that piece? What is that?
Yeah, I think that's just um I think, oh no, it's your skill as a rider. So there's certain things that you need to have. So you could have the best intentions, you could have the most prepared horse. He could be like, what are we doing today, mom? I'm all yours. But still, if you're sitting crooked or don't have control over your hands, or so there's a certain, discipline of developing your own skills as a rider to be balanced and
Mhm.
have the core strength and just rider skill. And
Gotcha.
yeah, I've had my miles of lunge lessons, and I give myself position lessons all the time. I went on a big quest of that this week because I found in my upper level horse with the one tempies, I'm like, well, Karen, maybe the fact that your legs are swinging all over the place might have something to do. So I kind of notice myself and I go, wait, I need a riding lesson. I need some riders. So I spend a whole week just holding on to the front of the saddle and putting my legs down and really being careful and watching myself and go, that leg went back. Don't swing your leg back in your Canada parts, Karen. That works for Canada parts, but it won't work in the one tempies because his butt's all over the place.
Yeah.
So, just to remember, no matter how experienced you are, to like take a look at your own skills, because
Mhm.
all the psychology and heartfeltness and happiness and willingness, if I'm bumbling through my transitions or twisting around in my lateral work,
Mhm.
it's not going to work. So
Work,
yeah,
right? Yeah, if you're in the way, if you're hindering at any point there,
right,
you can want it all day long, but you're not
yeah.
helping it.
Yeah. So your partnership, your communication, the biomechanics, and the rider skills, that's gonna give you the results. So it's in those areas. So if something's not working, look there.
Yeah.
How are you sitting? How's your partnership? Is there stuff that you're not communicating well about?
Mhm.
How's your horse moving? Do you need to go through some biomechanical stuff? Do you need to really, really look at the throughness and things like that? So it's good to know the areas to look in. It's not
Sure.
just
Yeah.
more leg.
Right. Right. More like inside leg to outside rein, right?
Yeah.
Just
I
keep
mean,
doing. Yeah.
that's it. And that's so funny because when you finally get it all done, it's like, oh my God, it's just that inside leg to outside rein. But that is
Right.
what it feels
Right.
like when it works, but it doesn't go the other way around. You can't just put it on.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's more something that you earn rather than something you just apply.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
arrives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And you talked in that article also a little bit about precision and play. So I feel like this is a little bit about balancing, like you talked about the happy with the dressage. Is that right? Am I thinking right about that?
Yes, it is. And just you know I have a lot of students who come from natural horsemanship, and then they like learning dressage with me because I know I get the kind of partnership that they have with their horse.
Okay.
But sometimes if they come from partnership and they do dressage, then they'll kind of joke around at clinics and like, my horse is so good freestyle. I mean, he's just so soft and flowing, and then I do dressage and he gets really
Oh,
tense. And I go, when does he get tense? They're like, when I do dressage. And I like, that might have something to do with it. So that's really normal that when we think dressage, we think precise and then it has to be right. And we get tight in our bodies and in our minds. And so it seems like like the horse is like, what's wrong with you, mom? Like it was all free. And then all of a sudden it was all tight. But then on the other hand, you can get, dressage, people are tight in dressage and then they start realizing freestyle. And now all of a sudden their horse is just going wherever he wants. They're finding all that harmony, following their horse everywhere. And they realize, uh-oh, I can't trot a straight line anymore. So there's they precision and play, freestyle and concentrated riding live inside of each other in really interesting ways. So, when you're riding down center line, it shouldn't feel like, oh my God, I'm holding all this in. Right? I mean, okay, sometimes it does, but it should.
Sometimes it does. If we're honest, sometimes it does. But
or you read in a dressage book, like I love looking at dressage text and like read out the aids for a shoulder in. It's a paragraph. I'm like, there's no way you can be doing all of that. So
and
you're
then
riding down center line.
So then there's the next paragraph.
Right. So riding down center line should feel like I'm going down center line and I'm trying not to change anything. Right. So there's a lot of freedom. But where the play comes in, so I think you can kind of get that point, but I have a quote that I love. Precision arrives out of the possibilities that play creates.
Oh, I like that.
Isn't that a good one?
Yeah.
That's mine.
That's
So here's how it works. Because this is what trainers do. And I know you do this, Patrick. So you're riding around on your horse and then maybe like you lose a little throughness. Do you, choice A, clamp down on your aids and show the horse exactly where they're supposed to be? Or do you, B, put a little leg on here and maybe try a little, you make probably little adjustments to see what works the best. I don't know, which is it?
I would go with B. I think I would go with B.
Yeah. And if you're a trainer, when you go from one horse to another, now some trainers do this, they ride every single horse the same. And then there's horses that succeed, and then there's the problem horses.
Right.
There's
the ones
some
that didn't
trainers,
fit in the mold, that fit in the box.
Right. And there's some trainers who can ride a variety of different horses, and you adapt a little bit. Like this horse likes a lighter seat, and this horse you can't close your legs. You have to kind of keep them fluffy. Oh, but this horse wants them closed. So there's always these little variations that you're doing to try to find the place that the horse goes, that makes sense to me in that moment. Yeah. And then you experiment, you play around, you feel the like, oh, there's where I need to go. And then you try to repeat that precisely or consistently so that you keep having the good result. And then one day it doesn't work. And so the temperature drops 30 degrees and now you got to play with it a little differently. Yeah. And I think confident, educated, experienced riders that are good trainers that get along with lots of different horses naturally do that. They're like, where's the spot? And we go, where's the spot? There it is. But I think students tend to go, I need to do it right. I need to keep my hand there. I need to do it this one way. If I just keep working harder at this, it's finally going to work. And then sometimes what you need to have it really work is just like one little wiggle to the side. So I really try to help. And because I coach so many people remotely that they're like, they're home trying to do this in a field all by themselves. So I really encourage the experimentation. Like, what's the right tempo for your horse? Well, I can send them a metronome or a song, ride to this, because that's what every horse that won the Olympics did at this tempo, but that's not going to really help them. Right. So I'll go, what adjectives do you want to feel with your horse?
Yes, I've heard you talk about the adjectives. Yeah.
So say you have a erratic, sticky, jarring horse. Those are the adjectives that you have. And I go, well, what would you like him to feel more of? Oh, I'd like them to feel a little springier, freer, and cadenced. Okay, so remember that. And now
Mhm.
go out, and everybody can do this with any horse today. Try a faster tempo, try a slower tempo. Go
Mhm.
faster and faster until it feels really horrible. Now go slower and slower until it feels really horrible for different reasons. Now you'll
Mhm.
find a range that feels pretty good for different reasons. When do you find the spot where your horse feels a little springier, a little freer, a little more cadenced? Or maybe you only get two of those or one of those, but you go, ooh, that feels different. And
Yeah.
now remember what tempo that is or
Mhm.
what energy level. So, but if students just kind of ride around going, am I doing this right? They kind of ride around and go, well, I did some stuff. I wasn't really
Right.
sure. Right. So, but if you're thinking about what am I trying to create? What's the adjectives? And I know, well, it might be a little faster or slower. It might be a little aligned this way or that way. My rein length might be a certain length or another. My arms might be a certain place or another. And you experiment and you notice what happens with your horse. And that's why I tell people, do it until you know you don't like it. Like, don't live there, but just go, "Ooh, that really
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
feel
Yeah,
good."
that makes
You know,
sense.
and then
Yeah.
you know, okay, now I know that that's too quick a tempo, and I know that's too slow a tempo. So now I know a range,
Mhm.
and you can get really close because the reality is 10 different trainers will pick 10 different tempos anyway. So get in the
Sure.
range that you like, where you can go, oh my gosh, that feels good. Now
Mhm.
you're like happy because it feels good. Your horse feels you go, oh, she likes that.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And now you have more harmony.
There comes the
And you're
harmony.
not
Yeah.
going, am I doing it right? Because guess what? If you're riding around going, am I doing it right? Your horse is going to be going, am I doing it right? And then you both go back to the barn and go,
Did we do it right?
yeah. And then the pasture, your horse's pasture mate goes, hey, Fred, what'd you do today? He's like, I rode around for about 45 minutes. We did
That's
stuff.
it. That's it. Not sure if I did it right, but I'm done.
Yeah. So I think that, the premise is the basics of dressage should make the horse feel good too. It's
Mhm.
about balance and freedom and ease of movement and harmony. It's like that should feel good to your horse. So the horse might be like, whoa, that was weird. We went all over the place and then, woo, we got to this spot where everything just flowed.
Mhm.
What did I
Yeah.
do to get that? So when they go, he goes back out and, hey, Fred, what'd you do? He's like, I'm a ballerina. Did you see me?
Ah.
you know,
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
that's what I dream. That's what they're probably just telling funny stories about me out in the pasture. But I
Right.
dream
Right.
that they're saying that they had a good time.
I love it. That's perfect. That's perfect. No, that's a great way of looking at it. Talking about your adjectives and kind of. I talked to writers a little bit about playing the scales, right, up and down. So similar, very similar idea there. And I love your thought of take it until you don't like it. What's too fast until you don't like it, and don't live there, but know that that exists.
Mhm.
And and the opposite for the slow, and then can you find the range in the middle?
Yeah.
We're always asking, where's the middle? Is it too soft? Is it too hard? Well, what about being in the middle? So I think that's a
Yeah.
really great way of doing that, and then describing the adjectives. I love that. I heard you say that quite a while ago, and I've asked people at clinics sometimes when I have that thought. I ask them about their adjectives. How would they describe it? And I credit you with it every time I use it.
Oh, well,
Um,
thanks.
but
Yeah, and
so
I've done this
yeah.
at clinics, and it's sort of like a little magic trick. I take some, I go, who here knows nothing about dressage? Who
Mhm.
here feels like they have no idea? And I pull them out, and I have a rider, and I'll just say, go faster, go slow. And I say, you just tell me when you know you hate it. And
Okay. Yeah.
and so it builds their confidence. And because it's what's interesting is some people, we go over the adjectives, and then I go, okay, when is it clearly you're losing all the positive adjectives and you have only negative adjectives? And you'll see people hesitate, like, I'm not sure if I should say that. So one thing I really help people do is like trust your instincts. Like,
Yeah.
just say what you're thinking. There's no right or wrong. It's just according to you. And
Mhm.
they're like, there. And I can usually see when they know they want to say it, but they're a little bit afraid.
Mhm.
So I just like,
They
just
say it
say,
with a question mark.
right. And so that's one of the biggest points, is just like, just trust your instincts. Like, when it looks worse. So
Mhm.
just say, there, that's clearly worse. And so if you can find the worst on both ends of the spectrum, you've really built a lot of confidence in yourself.
Mhm.
Because in the bottom line is your horse is actually asking you these questions. Mom, am I doing it? Do you like this? And we need to, in the moment, go there, or, oop, not like that. Because if you hesitate, then the moment passes and the horse, you're saying, horse, would you do this? And they're going, this? And if you're like,
For sure. Right.
think of how it would be if you were teaching your student like that. Patrick, is this right? You're like, well, and then you go, well, it's pretty good for you.
Yeah.
Just
Right.
just keep doing that. Okay, see you next week.
Right.
But I think we do that with our horses, and I think if you're a horse and you're riding it, it doesn't matter what your level of experience is. Your horse doesn't care about that. Your horse cares in this moment. What do you want? Did I do it? And then they want to be paid a little bit for it, which, as they should. Did I do it? Is this it? Did I do it? Did you like it? How much you want me to do it again? So I'm always thinking of, can I clearly tell my horse what to do? Can I let them know if they did it or not, and help them find the answer so that they can feel like a total rock star when they did it, so much that the next time I do it, they're like, ooh, 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 I'm on it. Like when I went out with the lunging cavesson and my other horses came over and put their head in it.
Right.
So how can we get that equivalent? That's the game. I'm not 100% successful at it, but that's what I'm trying to do, is like, okay, when I straighten up and I go down that line and I start to sit like this, my horse is like, ooh, 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 it's going to be the tumpies. I know.
Yep. Pick me.
Right. So that to me is what makes it fun. That's the game.
Awesome. And I feel like that so much of this goes back to those words that you said, the question you had asked about, can I follow more or can I lead more clearly? I feel like everything kind of is going down into that.
Exactly.
So you mentioned trusting your instincts. And you mentioned that also in this article that I had skimmed about the happy athlete formula. So the trusting your instincts, we're talking about, you were mentioning the riders that kind of, trust it. Know when it feels good to you, it's at least an improvement, right? Maybe it's not the best in that moment, but it's surely an improvement. And then you can follow that until you know you want more. And then you can ask for a little bit more. You can lead more clearly, something like that. Is there more you can talk about with the trusting your instincts part?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of something really brilliant was in my head, and then I felt it. You ever feel that? Like I was going to say something, and I was like, there it goes.
There it goes. I get it all the time.
The trusting your instincts in the moment, it's all about feel. And now I remembered. That's
Perfect.
really, I mean, the naturally part of dressage naturally. Okay, yeah, it started out because it was a combination of dressage and natural horsemanship. But what is natural horsemanship anyway? But the natural part to me is being so in the moment with yourself that when you feel something, you feel it. Like horses do. We humans practice being unnatural because we feel stuff and then we shut it off.
Yeah.
Or we practice feeling and thinking one thing and saying another. Oh yeah, I'd love to go to your child's concert. I mean, it's part of our culture to not say what we do. And I think there's a Gandhi quote of, happiness is when what you think, what you do, and what you say are all in alignment. And I think that really translates to horses, right?
Yeah.
So in the moment, we feel stuff. And when I do the adjectives exercise with people, or when I do the game of pick something you asked your horse to do and tell me when your horse 100% gets it. Like when it's like, yes, right?
Okay.
There is never a time when people don't really feel it. So often it can sound like this, like, okay, you're asking your horse to, let's just say, do a forehand yield. Did your horse match your picture, is what I'll say. Okay. And I'll hear things like, well, is better. Okay, that's no. That's a human version of no. That's no, but I want to give him credit for being better and I want to be
It was good for
positive.
him.
It's like, was that 100%? And I was like, yeah, that's no. So I keep going until it sounds like this. Did your horse match your picture? Yes. Like, that it's like that landed, like beyond a shadow of a doubt. Yes, absolutely. So I've never had a student not answer that, like when they get to the yes, that I didn't completely agree with. Like
Okay.
it's always like, yeah, like you try to tell me when you have your best moment, even if it's just one stride, tell me when it's the best one. And it's like, yeah, yes, they'll miss it because they think yes, but they are afraid to say it, but they never miss it when they just let it be natural.
Yeah.
And what makes it not be natural is that they're thinking and going, am I going to sound dumb if I say this? I
Right.
saw that video last week. It didn't look like that. I don't want to look stupid. Or
Mm-hmm.
they wait too long. So the natural part is like, let it flow. Let the feelings flow through you. Feel it, because it's the feelings I think they're giving information, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you feel
Mm-hmm.
something just not right. My cattle dog knows when my horses are about to leave me at liberty. It's a
Ah, interesting.
feeling. Yeah. And I'm like, wait, this is actually really helpful. I used to yell at her, get back, get back. I'm like, wait. So she'll lay there
Oh,
quietly. I'll play with my liberty. At some point, she stands up because she's feeling the
she
horses
feels
getting
what's going to
ready.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And so now I've learned when she stands up, I go, okay, what am I
Yeah.
doing?
Who's leaving? What's going to happen? What do I need
So
to adjust?
if I'm really in the moment, I feel it too.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
I'm not thinking, when I'm not busy getting my goal. So the natural part to me is that trusting the feeling, and this is where the personal development comes in, is to know yourself and to stop practicing pretending you're not feeling it. I'm
Okay.
a personal information. I'm a really good repressor. I can stamp a feeling down like the best of them, or I used to be. Now I'm like, I'm having an emotional reaction to this. I feel
Yeah.
stressed. So I raise my hand. I go, wow, I'm feeling something here. Right.
Uh-huh.
And so that's how horses live. That's how animals live.
Sure. Sure.
So I think the more you can trust your instincts and just feel stuff and name it, or just be present enough that you're actually feeling it, um, that's going to give you more information than trying to, there's a time for thinking, of course. That's when you stop and you go, let's think about this for a second. It's not
Yeah.
really going well. Let's just
Right.
think.
Let's analyze.
I wonder
Yeah.
what else I could do. But in the moment when you're asking your horse and your horse is responding and you're going, I don't know if I should tell him that was good because it's not really as good as it was 3 weeks ago in that lesson I had. In this moment, you know what you asked, you know how your horse responded. Either help him find the answer or tell him he's fabulous, because that's all he cares about. Did I
Right.
do it? Is this what you wanted, Mom? Can you pay me?
Yeah.
That's all they
Right.
want. Pay me with rest or pay me with cookies, but like tell
Mhm.
me how I did. Something
Perfect.
like that. Does that make sense?
I think it makes sense. I think it
You
makes a
make
lot.
me go on these rants.
I love it. I love these
You're
rants.
asking me about all my most passionate subjects.
That's perfect. Good. I love it. I love hitting on those spots, that makes it, I don't know about anybody else listening, but it sure makes it interesting for me,
I mean,
love.
we're not live, are we? You're gonna edit those parts out, right? No.
Yeah, right.
Totally
Yeah,
kidding.
we can edit some of this out, we don't,
My
it's not
husband just laughed
professional
from the
so
other room.
enthusiastic. Oh, that's awesome.
He said it's a little late to ask that. No, I'm only kidding.
Perfect. Perfect. Oh my goodness. So let's see. I want to be respectful of your time. I know you've got ponies to play
I got
with.
nowhere to go, Patrick. It's the pandemic.
This is true. Well, I'm gonna take you up on that nowhere to go part, because I think there's some other things, some other topics that I'd love to touch on, but I think it would be really great for another conversation, because I feel like we could end up going for about 6 hours if we take too long in this. Can I jump into real quick? We had a listener chime in with a question ahead of time. Do you mind if I ask that question?
Sure.
Okay, cool. So Janet sent in her question and she asks, do you feel like there are any limitations to using a bitless bridle over a bitted bridle when doing suppling exercises and riding your horse from back to front, all in the endeavor to getting a horse to use his body in the most healthy way while being ridden? And I know we haven't talked much about the, we
No,
haven't
that's
talked
great.
at all yet about bitless or bitted, but this was a question from Janet. I wanted to make sure that we got that in here.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's something I think about all the time because I start all my horses bitless. And then
Mhm.
at some point I do educate them with a bit, and then they tell me what they think about that. And then I make decisions accordingly.
Mhm.
So conceptually, there's no limit. I mean, I've ridden horses all at the levels bitless, and some of them are better bitless. But there is one thing that you cannot do when you're bitless.
Okay.
And it's the only thing you can't do, because suppleness to me is all about the body. And
Sure.
you can talk to the body bitless.
Mhm.
Riding back to front, of course, do that always, with or without a
Right.
bit. So the horse is mostly body, but and you can do everything with the reins with a bit or without a bit. I ride exactly the same. Like I don't change my technique, not one bit. Pun intended. But except for one little thing. The
Okay.
only thing you cannot do bitless is influence the jaw, right? So there are some horses that hold tension in their jaw,
Mhm.
and now a horse can have tension in his jaw because of other stuff in the body. So
Sure.
when I have a horse that's tense in the jaw, I don't automatically talk to the jaw. I
Mhm.
talk about the balance, because all the problems in the body are going to show up in the reins with or without a bit.
Right.
So even if there's tension in the jaw, it might not be originating in the jaw. But
Mhm.
some horses do get tense in the jaw. It originates there. And if you're
Mhm.
bitless, you can't talk to the jaw. Where with a bit, you can lift one rein and
Mhm.
talk to the corners of the lips, which causes them to open their mouth and
Absolutely.
release their jaw.
Absolutely.
Like even on the ground, I don't know if you've had Patrick horses that just like they don't release. You're playing on
Mhm.
the ground, and sometimes I'll just stick my finger in their mouth and they go, oh,
Exactly. Yeah, just play
you
with the
know,
tongue a little bit,
it just
activate that hyoid. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, they just get a little bit like frozen, and then if
Mhm.
sometimes people will just wait, and
Yeah.
everybody's sitting there waiting, and so I'll just stick my finger in their mouth, go hey, and they're like, oh, sorry, I didn't know where I went. So
Right.
you can do that with a bit. You can just open the mouth.
Mhm.
So that's the only reason. That's the only thing you cannot do bitless, but you can do with a bit. With
Mhm.
that said, every horse is so different. So I have horses that go literally just as well bitless as with a bit.
Mhm.
And any bit and bitless, they just like it just ran like whatever works that day. Some horses go great bitless, and then they go even better with a bit. It's a
Yeah.
To me, a bit is a tool of refinement. It should take
Mhm.
something that's already working well and make it work even yummier. It's
Yeah.
like it's just more delicate. Um, so there's horses that I ride a lot bitless, and then when I have what I want to have one of my best days, like okay, we're gonna go and really just enjoy reap the rewards of all my training and just have one of those really yummy, delicate, finessey days, then I might put the bit in, and just everything becomes lighter and more sensitive.
Mhm.
There's some horses who are worse with a bit. So my upper level horse Ovation hates snaffles, any
Okay.
kind. And believe me, I tried them all. He doesn't like it on his tongue. So he'd pull his tongue up his throat and
Okay. Yep.
curl up like this. So he went
Mhm.
from being really solid in the connection in the bitless, but with a bit, he curls up, I can't find him. And he would
Mhm.
break out in a
Yeah.
cold sweat.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is a handicap to my training.
Mhm.
So with him, I just continued bitless. And now with him, I wear a half a double bridle, which is my bitless bridle. And then
Okay.
I found a curb that has a really square port and it's angled. So when it's at rest, it
Uh-huh.
literally comes up and over the tongue.
Goes over top of his tongue. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't lay there and then poke in the roof of his mouth. It just literally I love the bit.
Oh,
And so he
fantastic.
goes in that, but he still hates snaffle. So I really do each horse individually, and
Mhm.
I like them to be educated about the bit. If
Mhm.
they like it, don't dislike it, then I use whatever works the best.
Hmm.
I don't have to compete, so I get the luxury of doing whatever my horses say that they like.
There you go.
Yeah, but that the if the tension originates in the jaw, a bit is a beautiful tool to be able to just say, "Hey, stay alive."
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
cool, fantastic. I love that, and I will put in a little plug for your bitless bridles. Hopefully, you still have
Oh,
them in your
thank
web
you.
shop because you'll have a bunch of people
Absolutely. Thank you.
hopefully looking for them from here. Of all the bitless bridles that I've worked with or seen show up at clinics and things like that, yours definitely to me seems to ring as, I don't want to say best on the market because I don't want to, exclude anybody, but I've recommended it to probably several hundred
Oh,
people now.
thank you.
Being the one that I feel like is the most clear, to the
Oh,
horse.
thanks. Yeah.
So,
And I designed it so that it could be loose. The trouble with so many
mhm,
bitless bridles is there's things that tighten so that they don't swing around.
absolutely.
And so I
Yeah.
kept riding in my rope halter going, well, this works. I don't have to tighten it. So I
Hmm.
tried to, it looks basically like a, oopsie, like a halter, but
Hmm.
it's a bitless bridle. Yeah. And there's nothing fancy leverage. It's not a good control device if that's what you're in
Right.
for, but it's just a very simple, with bits and the bitless, I want to feel like if my arms were long enough to be able to contact the end of the reins like that, I don't want it to do any more than that. So yeah, there's
Exactly.
nothing,
Yeah.
and it doesn't
It's
get in their
very
eyes, and
simple, cut and dried, clear.
very
There's
simple.
no, like you said, there's nothing mixing it up, messing it up, twisting sideways, keeping it aligned. It just is there. It's balanced. I really love it as a piece of equipment.
Thank you. Oh, thank you for, that's good to know. Yay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, if anybody's out there looking for one, if anybody who's listening, definitely check out Karen's website for that. That would be in the web shop. Yeah.
Sure. Shop. You can get everything from dressagenaturally.net. The shop link
Perfect.
is up there. So yeah.
Good. Good. Awesome. So, okay. Again, I know that we could talk forever and for hours, but I want to be respectful of this. I feel like this is a pretty cool time to finish up with some wrap up questions, and then
That's
close
good.
us out if that's cool with you.
Yeah,
All
perfect.
right. So let's see. Let's go with what would you say as one actionable tip or thought for riders that they could ponder or work on today? Just one.
um
No pressure.
Yeah, well, I think I'll give you a question to ask yourself because it kind of will encapsulate a lot of what we talked about. So
Okay.
this is something I play with myself. I play with myself in my own brain. Um, I ask myself if my horse wrote a book today, and the book was called My Life with Karen, what kind of book would it be?
Oh, nice.
Tragedy? Comedy? Rags to riches story of personal development? Like, I think just asking that question, it will be interesting to see what comes up, right? So my dream is that the book is basically a happy story with some chapters that are like, "Ooh, that was hard," or "What the hell was she doing?" But the whole book itself
The overall,
was kind of like cool stuff I did with Karen.
that's cool.
So I think just asking yourself that question, I think will will lead to some very interesting realizations.
Yeah, I love that, and I hope that's something that our listeners might even type in the comments here. What their horse's book would be like.
And be honest with yourself.
Yeah, right, right.
There's
I
times
love that. That's such a cool question.
oh, look at that hair, Patrick. Look at that skin.
That's nice.
How'd that happen?
A little Cindy Lou Who thing going on there.
Anyway, I got it.
Oh goodness. Okay. What is the recent book that you've read or video that you've watched?
You know what I am reading now again? This is maybe out left field, but Jennifer Zelig, do you know her? She's not a horse person. She has a
No.
book called Animal Training 101, and
Okay.
I think everybody should read it.
Yeah.
She works with exotics, sea lions, dolphins,
Okay.
and she really explains animal training from a behaviorist, scientific, but she's just a really interesting lady. So just the good old animal training theory, but
Okay.
she's also very artistic in her training, and she really explains the pros and cons of things and gives examples of that. And she has a horse, and so she kind of gets horses, and I think it helps put a lot of how we work with horses in a
Okay.
bigger context of animal training. And it's like, I think it should be required reading as anybody, because there's a lot of stuff like I didn't know. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like a professional horse trainer, animal trainer, and how did I not know this stuff? So I think it's just a really interesting sort
Okay.
of additional thing to your library that will give some very interesting context to
Cool. Okay.
what we do. Yeah, so that's the one on my bookshelf right now, on my
That's awesome. So
nightstand right
that
now.
you said that was Animal Training 101.
Animal Training 101, Jennifer Zelig, Jenifer, there's only one N, and then Zeligz. S.
Okay.
Sorry. Zelig.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. Oh, fantastic. Cool. Yeah. I
And
would
I'm going to
definitely.
be interviewing her. I've been doing some interview series that I haven't put out yet, but I will be, and she's on my list of people. So she'll pop up in that at
Cool.
some point.
Oh, awesome. That'll be great to listen to. Very cool. Awesome. Let's see. What is something that the horse has given to you?
Oh, what haven't they? Lots of forgiveness.
Ah,
I have a long list of horses I apologize to on a regular basis. But dogs are all about unconditional love, but man, horses are about forgiveness over and
yeah.
over and over again. We get it wrong, and then we get it right, and it's like they're like, finally.
Yeah,
I don't
right.
know.
Thank goodness for that. Huh?
Yeah, they give me such joy. I mean, I'm just determined that it gives me joy. But yeah, they give me the gift of seeing myself and forgiving me for all my
That's
mistakes.
awesome. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I love that.
Oh.
So this is a constant journey of discovery and improvement. What area of your horsemanship or your self-development are you currently working on or wanting to improve?
Oh, that's a really cool question. Besides everything. Yeah, well, I think right now, honestly, because I've been reading that book of Jennifer's,
Okay.
I've been I've been trying to understand what I've been doing and what it is. Like what's that
Oh,
called, that technique that I'm doing? And I remember years ago, I had a few students who were professional dog trainers, and they train dogs like to be assisting handicapped people and stuff, like really out there working. And they used to watch my riding. They're like, what are you doing? Is that operant this and look, the negative positive? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I put my leg on, it goes, so,
right.
so now, I'm like, oh, I'm really learning that language in a more sophisticated way. And I'm kind of trying to see what am I doing? And then what are all the avenues that I haven't done because I haven't thought of it in that way, or just, oh, look at you, Karen. Like the other day, I'm like, ooh, this antecedent arrangement is not working to elicit this behavior. What other antecedent arrangement could I use? Like I was training this horse and I was doing a different area. I'm like, wow, I just changed 3 contexts and I didn't.
Yeah.
So just appreciating, what's cool about what she teaches is she has this meme. She goes, if that was a bear, would you do it that way?
Yeah.
If that was a dolphin, would you do it that way? And I'm like, oh man, how many times do we just put a rope on it and make it go?
Right.
Over there. And if it was a bear, you couldn't do that.
Right.
So right. I right now what I'm thinking of is, if that was a bear, would I do it that way? And I'm trying to be a little creative. I have a horse right now who's has a tendon injury, so he's on very limited movement. And so I'm teaching him things like, can you tell the difference between a square and well, of course you can tell the difference. Can you go to touch a square or a circle on cue? I've got him sitting on a beanbag. I've got him, I'm just trying different stuff and different types of tricks and trying to be more aware in my training. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking of, is just taking a fresh look at what am I doing and trying to really understand what I'm doing and see it in a different light. So it's just self-observation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
What was the
cool.
question?
I love that. I love. Oh,
Did
yeah,
I
I love.
answer it?
No, that. Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
good.
That's the answer. Definitely something you're working on or wanting to improve. I think that's really cool. And you said something in there, that question of, if that was a bear, would I be doing it that way? I feel like that might actually be for a relationship advice podcast.
The sea lion that she can't even touch, and she's just doing it with. I'm like, oh man, I feel like a caveman horse trainer sometimes.
Right.
Not really. But yeah, I
That's
just think, to the never ending improvement of your own self and skills. Like, let's look at my training, and I look at her stuff, and I felt like a beginner again, and I love that feeling. I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, look at all this stuff I can learn. And then
How
to
cool.
understand, because as she goes in more advanced part of the book, I'm like, oh, now she's talking about the stuff that I'm doing, like the art of it and the how to, like, when to switch, so it's really interesting. I didn't know the basic stuff as much as I knew the advanced stuff. So just more
That's
knowledge.
really cool. Yeah. Well, yeah, adds more layers to everything that you've already got going on.
Yeah.
How cool.
Yep.
I love it. So if you had a giant billboard advertisement for the whole world to see, what's the message you'd put on it?
Never underestimate the possibility for things to improve in ways you cannot yet imagine.
Oh, I love it. That was smooth.
It's on the bottom of every email. It's on the bottom of every page on my website, and probably a few other places. Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome. Cool. Karen, this has been so much fun. How can folks find you?
Yeah, it's really easy. DressageNaturally.net. I'm very Googleable, so you can just write my name and it'll come up. But DressageNaturally.net, you can get to the shop, you can get to my blog. If you're not on my mailing list, you can opt in to get 3 free videos, get a little taste of some common, some training videos to solve some common problems. Yeah, so just get to my website. There's a lot of stuff to read and look at and, entertain yourself with. And then if you want to go further, there's a page that shows all my online resources, and you get to my book. And we just have a ton of stuff out there for people to learn, from step-by-step courses to just a subscription video library. It has like 400 videos in there on all different subjects. If you like to read, I have a book and DVD. So, and if you're not sure, just give us a call or email us and just say, hey, I don't know where to start. And we can even do personal consults with my team, one of my instructors. You can book a private appointment, just go, okay, here's what's going on with me and my horse. What should I do? Where should I study first? And we can point you to what will be the best
Awesome.
bang for your buck.
Perfect. That's fantastic. Well, thank you again, Karen. Always fun. And, there's so much more that we can talk about. So we're going to have to talk about doing this again soon.
Anytime. It's always fun talking to you, Patrick. So just, I'm here.
Perfect. Good. Well, thank you. And I'm going to wrap us up here, and then we'll chat for a minute or so after that, if that's
okay.
cool with you.
I'll just sit here and smile.
Ah, there we go. Yeah, perfect. So, gang, I want to thank you so much for tuning in for episode number 45 of Talking About Horses. And I really appreciate you giving Karen and I your ear for this time. Please remember, if you've missed any of it, you can access the full broadcast through Facebook, eventually through YouTube, iTunes, or by streaming it directly from the Talking About Horses page that you can find in the my website from the education drop-down menu. Through whatever platform you're listening, please be sure to give us a rating, a comment, a review, and a share with your friends. Thank you so much, gang, and please tune in next time.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Talking About Horses with Patrick King. If you enjoyed today's show, please leave a review and subscribe. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit pkhorsemanship.com. We'll catch you next time.